Hello and welcome to Secrets and Mysteries, episode 16, Top 10 Reasons to be a Prepper. On the off chance that you don't know what a prepper is, I'll give you a brief explanation. A prepper is somebody who is prepared for unforeseen events, sort of the natural disasters, calamities of all kinds. And you would also probably throw into that category people who are survivalists, off-grid, people who are into DIY, self-sustaining, that sort of thing. Some people consider prepping simply the storage of food and other items for a long-term period where they might not be able to get to a store. And a long term for them might be a few weeks. Other people take it to the point of becoming homesteaders and pretty much gear their entire lives around being prepared for being off-grid and being able to be completely self-sustaining. Some people with extraordinary means might go to the extent of building a multiple $1 million structure under the ground. Still others will simply buy something like this $58 go bag, which is sort of a backpack filled with various survival supplies. And you can get this from Walmart and just kind of throw it in your car. And then you'll definitely always have at least some level of preparedness. So, not counting the zombie apocalypse, here are the top 10 reasons why you want to be a prepper. Reason number 10, because disaster insurance is just a good idea. It's a good idea for the same reason why insurance is a good idea. Think of it as disaster insurance. You already have homeowners or renters insurance, you've got auto insurance, you've got health insurance, you've got life insurance, you might have dental insurance, you might have insurance for your dog. Why not have the kind of insurance that when you need it, really nothing else will do? Reason to be a prepper number 9, peace of mind. If you're honest with yourself, contending with the unknown when it comes to prepping and DIY and off-grid and basically the reasons why you would do that produces a bit of a schism, a little unrest in your soul. Knowing that you have checked that block, at least to the sense and degree that you feel that you need to, will create some peace of mind. So there's another good reason why you should be a prepper. Reason number 8 could be a short-term natural disaster like a flood or a forest fire or a blizzard. I considered putting this one higher up on the list because of the frequency by which these short-term disasters occur. But because there are much worse ones on the list, it remains here at number 8. So whether you're trapped in your car or holed up in your house for a period of time without the ability to go to a store, being a prepper is going to just take the edge right off of that whole situation by giving you that level of comfort and by allowing you to have things on hand that you don't have to worry about going without for that period of time. Reason number 7 why you might want to be a prepper are the longer-term natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes. Over the last few decades, the scope and level of destruction created by hurricanes and earthquakes and tsunamis have increased both in frequency and intensity. This image is of Hurricane Katrina, and I bet you could find a whole lot of people there that would tell you that they wish they had been prepared for that when it hit. Sadly, you won't find some of the people who are least prepared because they're no longer with us. Reason number 6, a growing problem with civil unrest throughout the world. You don't have to be involved with civil unrest for it to affect your life adversely. You can be in an area where there's martial law declared or where riots cause an environment where law is difficult to enforce. For the most part, in Western society, civil unrest is something that's fairly temporary. Although, if you look to France, you can see where civil unrest is becoming more and more, durable. And because of that, you need to be more and more prepared for having a society that's around you that isn't operating in its normal fashion. Reason number 5, catastrophic natural disasters. These are game changers. These are things like calderas, like the one in Yellowstone National Park. If it erupts, it will basically change the United States to such a degree that a large percentage of the United States would be uninhabitable for a very long period of time. Lots of people will be on the move, and there will be very little in the way of assistance for those individuals. So if you are not prepared for something catastrophic, you will become a victim. Superquakes or super earthquakes are also possible because they are overdue, according to geologists. So that's another thing that could be a long-term game changer, and people close to that environment may be without any real assistance for a very long period of time, especially if you want to take things like Katrina and Haiti into consideration, which would be a much smaller natural disaster by comparison. Another possible consideration is the fact that the location of the coastlines is changing, possibly due to global warming. Now, in some places, the coastlines are actually becoming larger, or in other words, the water is going down. Not really sure why that's occurring. But in many places, the coastlines are encroaching onto land and the water is apparently rising. Now, why you would have this disparity in some locations, I don't know. All I know is that it may force large numbers of people to move further inland, which would drain or strain resources and possibly create the need for competition for both room and resources. So being prepared, it just would help to alleviate any stress caused by climate change. Now, I don't address climate change in this video in any other way, but I do have a global warming video on my channel if you'd like to check that out. Number 4, and to be fair, I don't worry a lot about this one, but a lot of people actually do. And that's because number 4 is aliens and asteroids. A large percentage of the public out there believes in aliens, and certainly asteroids are a very real threat. So these are just two more reasons kind of grouped together as alien or extraterrestrial reasons to be a prepper. These are both obviously game-changing events where being prepared for a disrupted society would be a very good idea. Number 3 is maybe not as likely quite yet, but the likelihood of it is becoming more and more so, and that is the threat of war within the United States, whether it be a civil war or some kind of a staged coup or maybe even an invasion of some kind. So that is another, unfortunately, possible threat. It's tough to say what that would look like because it's really tough to say exactly how it would occur and who would be involved and exactly what regions of the United States or surrounding countries would be involved. So war is sort of the ultimate wild card and definitely something that would require a great deal of preparation for maximizing one's chances for survival. And that is going to bring us to number 2, which is the possibility, the very real possibility of economic collapse, specifically the collapse of the value of the US dollar. The most likely reason for an economic collapse in the United States would be the collapse of the value of the US dollar. That can occur in many different ways. I'm going to talk about the 2 most common or likely ways. One is the fact that the US dollar is currently still, for the most part, viewed as the currency of trade globally, although that trend has been a dramatic decrease over just the last few years. What this means is that in other countries, when people buy goods from one another, in other words, country to country, quite frequently the US dollar is used, and that's good for our economy because it's one of the few things that gives our dollar value in an economy where, until recently we hadn't been producing much. When the trend for that type of trade decreases, the value of the dollar decreases. And it takes a little while for that to catch up here, but it can happen. And if it does happen very quickly, it can cause dramatic reductions in the value of the dollar. The second really likely way that the US dollar could reduce greatly in value is if the Fed interest rates continue to rise anywhere above the middle 3%, because the debt that we have is based on an interest rate that is variable and is set in part by the Fed rate. In other words, when the Fed's interest rate goes up, so does the cost of paying our debt service to the loans that we owe other countries. This is a bad situation because we can get to the point where we can't even pay the debt service or interest rate on the loans, and that would default our credit, which would decrease the value of the dollar, and then you could see an exodus or a mass exodus in the use of the dollar, both in the United States and overseas. Either way you cut it, the resulting economic collapse would be terrible. This chart shows what hyperinflation can do to a currency. This is the German Weimar government that was around prior to the rise of the Nazi Party, and they didn't have a very strong economic plan, so you can see that the value of their currency rapidly and dramatically, almost ridiculously, in fact it was ridiculously, decreased in value in a very short period of time, where you would need a wheelbarrow worth of money to buy the simplest, smallest item. And yeah, this isn't just something that happens in ancient history or, 50 or 70 or 100 years ago. This has happened recently in countries like Czechoslovakia and Greece, and it's happening right now in Argentina. So clearly, being off-grid and self-sufficient in an environment where your life savings has absolutely no value would be a good idea. And number 1, biblical apocalypse. It has long been predicted that the book of Revelation's events were going to happen during the lifetimes of many, many individuals over the last few millennia. However, it has only been in recent times that those events are actually possible. Some of the things that need to occur before the 4 horsemen are able to ride is the ability for one man and one government to be able to control the buying, selling, trade, or travel of everyone on the planet. And until RFID chips came along, that was not possible. Some other things that need to be considered are the building of the 3rd Jewish temple, which is definitely underway in terms of everything that is needed for it is completed. And Jared Kushner just came back from a meeting with 6 Arab nations talking about a peace plan that would divide Israel, also another thing that has to happen. And a part of that plan would be the building of the 3rd Jewish temple. Now, these things are supposed to happen just prior to the return of Christ. So if those things are going to occur, and Donald Trump said he wanted to get those done within his first term in office, then we are very close to that period of time. Another sign that we might be approaching the biblical apocalypse is the fact that it's not just the Christians who are expecting the Messiah at any moment. It's also the Jews, the Muslims, and the Hindus. Those 4 groups combined equal well over 4 billion people, which is roughly half the world's population, if not more than half. Other signs that we are approaching the end times include the fact that the nation of Israel was born in one day on 14 May 1948, as foretold by the Bible. And the Bible goes on to say that that generation of that first nation of Israel, the new nation of Israel, shall not pass before the end times completely come to pass. Other signs include a falling away from the doctrine of the church, where people go to church, but they really don't even know what the Bible says, and they sort of kind of believe in the Bible, but not really. And then, of course, there's the fact that evil things are now being prized as good. And even words that mean bad and wicked are seen as good, but also television shows like Lucifer are popularized. Perhaps most telling would be the dramatic increase of natural disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes, red tides, mass animal die-offs, and landslides and sinkholes. You've also got the increase of wars and rumors of wars, the increase of diseases thought once to be eradicated, and lastly, but not least, is pole reversal, which is happening at a lightning speed. So why would you bother to try to survive the apocalypse if it's, the biblical apocalypse? Well, not everyone dies in the apocalypse, just a large percentage of people. The people who endure to the end without taking the mark of the beast, aka the RFID chip that controls whether or not you can buy, sell, trade, or travel, is one way to make it through the end and to meet Christ face to face. Now, I would prefer the method taken by Christians, which is the rapture of the church, so you don't have to go through the tribulation period. But even if you're a Christian, you're going to have to go through some of the tribulation period according to the Bible. And by that, I mean that you're going to have to go through the quote-unquote birth pangs. So those are the things that start to increase, like they are right now, for a period of time. And some governments will collapse prior to the end times actually kicking off full scale. So, maybe that's the United States, maybe it isn't, I don't know. It just all around seems like a really good idea to be prepared. So there you have it. Whether it's trying to survive the apocalypse or you're just being sensible in terms of having some type of disaster insurance, being a prepper is certainly not a bad idea. In fact, it's kind of the polar opposite of being a bad idea. It's really a good idea, and it's not super expensive. You can do it at varying levels. If you just want to have a go bag in the car, or you want to have some stuff stocked up at the house, whatever you want to do, you can certainly afford some level of disaster preparedness and become thereby a prepper. Please like and subscribe and hit the little bell for notifications and tell your friends.